the chandelier above the dining table threw fractured light across my mother's pearls. I watched them shimmer as she laughed, that particular laugh she reserved for when she wanted everyone to know she was in control. The air smelled like imported roses and something bitter underneath. Resentment, maybe. Or just expensive perfume gone sour in the heat of too many bodies pressed into our family's sprawling Connecticut estate. I sat at the far end of the table, fingers wrapped around a wine glass I hadn't touched. My sister Vanessa was holding court at the other end, her diamond bracelet catching light with every theatrical gesture. She was talking about her promotion, again, and our relatives leaned in like she was dispensing prophecy instead of corporate gossip. "Darling, you simply must tell them about the Paris trip," my mother cooed, her voice syrup-thick with pride. I felt my boyfriend Marcus shift beside me. His hand found mine under the table, warm and calloused from actual work, not tennis lessons and spa treatments. He squeezed gently, a silent question, "Are you okay?" I wasn't. But I smiled anyway, the way I'd been trained to smile since childhood, tight-lipped, appropriate, invisible. The thing about wealthy families is that they don't need to raise their voices to destroy you. They do it with glances. With strategic seating arrangements. With the way my father had introduced Marcus to our uncle as Charlotte's friend, letting the ellipsis hang there like a noose. Marcus was wearing his best shirt, blue cotton, probably from Target, and I'd watched my mother's eyes flicker over it with the same expression she used when inspecting day-old flowers. "So, Marcus," Aunt Diane said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "What is it you do again?" "I'm a contractor," he said evenly. "Construction, mostly. Residential and commercial renovation." "How industrious," she replied, and the word landed like a slap. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, I'd been breaking for years. This was different. Smaller. A hairline fracture in whatever was holding me upright. Vanessa laughed, and the sound carried across the table like breaking glass. "God, remember when Charlotte wanted to be an artist? Thank God that phase ended." It hadn't been a phase. It had been a dream, and they'd suffocated it with concerns about practical careers and family reputation. Now I worked at our family's investment firm, shuffling papers in a corner office that felt like a velvet-lined cage. "Charlotte's been invaluable to the firm," my father said, but even his praise felt hollow. Obligatory. Like he was checking a box labeled "Acknowledged Daughter" on some invisible list. Marcus's thumb traced circles on my palm. I focused on that. On the realness of it. Dinner dragged on. Course after course of food prepared by people whose names my family never bothered to learn. I pushed duck confit around my plate and tried to disappear into the wallpaper. I'd gotten good at that over the years, making myself small, quiet, unobtrusive. The invisible daughter. The one who did what she was told, who never caused scenes, who swallowed her feelings like bitter medicine. "Oh!" Vanessa's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. "I almost forgot to mention, we're having a celebration next month. The firm just closed the Riverside acquisition. Daddy's throwing a party. Everyone who matters will be there." My head snapped up. The Riverside acquisition. I'd spent 6 months on that deal. 6 months of 16-hour days, missed weekends, calls at midnight with lawyers and accountants. I'd found the property, analyzed the numbers, negotiated with the sellers when they were ready to walk away. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," my mother said, beaming. "Will there be dancing?" someone asked. "Of course," Vanessa said. "We've rented the Fairmont Ballroom. String quartet, full bar, catered by Jean Paul's new restaurant. It's going to be spectacular. I waited for the invitation. For someone to turn to me, to acknowledge that I'd been part of this. That I'd built this. No one looked my way. Marcus's hand tightened on mine. He'd noticed. Of course he had. He noticed everything about me, the way I held my breath when my mother entered a room, the way my shoulders tensed when my father used that particular tone, the way I flinched at Vanessa's laugh. Dad? My voice came out smaller than I intended. The Riverside acquisition? He glanced at me briefly, distracted. Oh, yes. Good work, Charlotte. Very thorough documentation. As if I'd been a secretary instead of the architect of the entire deal. Will I swallowed hard. Will I be at the party? Vanessa's eyebrows shot up. The party? It's really more of a reunion, my father said, cutting his steak with precise movements. Business associates, investors. Nothing formal. You wouldn't enjoy it, Charlotte. You know you don't like those sorts of things. That was a lie. He was lying to my face, rewriting my preferences to suit his narrative. I'd spent my entire life at those parties, smiling until my cheeks ached, making conversation with investors, remembering names and wives and children in golf handicaps. But I worked on Riverside, I said, and hated how my voice shook. It's just a reunion, my father repeated, as if saying it twice made it true. Nothing you need to concern yourself with. The room had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now, and I could feel their judgment like static electricity on my skin. I was making a scene. Breaking the unspoken rule. Good daughters didn't challenge their fathers at dinner parties. Marcus's chair scraped back. Excuse me, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. I need some air. He left the dining room, and I sat there, frozen. Part of me wanted to follow him. The other part was still waiting, pathetically, desperately, for someone to say I'd misunderstood, that of course I was invited, that my family wouldn't exclude me from celebrating something I'd built. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. It's Brian, she announced. He wants to know if we're still on for drinks at the club tomorrow. Brian. Her fiancé. Heir to a pharmaceutical fortune. Exactly the kind of man our parents approved of. Tell him yes, my mother said. And ask if his parents received our dinner invitation. They moved on. Just like that. The conversation flowed around me like I was a stone in a river, present but irrelevant, something to navigate around. I stood up carefully, as if sudden movement might shatter me completely. No one noticed. I walked out of the dining room, through the marble foyer, past family photos where Vanessa was always centered and I was always slightly out of frame. I found Marcus on the terrace, hands braced against the railing, staring out at the manicured gardens. The moon was full, painting everything silver and strange. I'm sorry, I whispered. He turned, and his face was gentle. Sad. You don't apologize for them, Charlotte. You never apologize for them. I should have said something. Should have what? He moved closer, hands cupping my face. They don't deserve you. They never have. His words broke something open inside me. I pressed my forehead against his chest and breathed in the smell of him, soap and cotton and something indefinably warm. Safe. Real. 6 months, I said into his shirt. I gave them 6 months of my life for that deal. I know. And they're throwing a party to celebrate it, and I'm not even invited. I know, baby. I know. We stood there while the night air turned cold and voices drifted from inside, laughter, the clink of glasses, my sister's triumphant voice rising above the rest. The sounds of a family that had never really included me. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something flickered across his face. Something complicated. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, he said, but he was lying. I could tell. We'd been together for 8 months, and I'd learned to read the small tells, the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes went distant. Marcus? It's nothing, he said, tucking the phone away. Just work. But it wasn't work. Work didn't make him look guilty. We went home to my apartment, the one I paid for with my own salary, not family money. It was small, cramped by my family's standards, and I loved every inch of it. My sanctuary. The only place where I could breathe. I didn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, Marcus's breath steady beside me, and felt the weight of everything crushing down. The exclusion. The dismissal. The casual cruelty of people who were supposed to love me. My phone lit up around 2 a.m. A notification from Instagram. Then another. Then 10 more in rapid succession. I opened the app with trembling fingers. Vanessa had posted a photo from dinner, the whole family gathered around the table, glasses raised, everyone smiling. The caption read, "So grateful for family and the amazing team that made the Riverside acquisition possible. Couldn't have done it without Dad's vision and leadership. Hashtag blessed, hashtag family business, hashtag success, no mention of me." I was in the photo, barely visible at the edge of the frame, but the caption erased me completely. Made me a ghost. The comments were already rolling in. Congratulations from friends and business associates. Heart emojis from relatives. Everyone celebrating Vanessa and my father. Then I saw the family group chat notification. 53 unread messages. I opened it. Aunt Diane, Vanessa, you're amazing. Your father must be so proud. Uncle Robert, that girl is going places. Not like some people who just coast along. Cousin Jennifer, did you see Charlotte at dinner? She looked miserable. So awkward. Aunt Patricia, well, you know how she is. Never could handle the pressure. Good thing Vanessa's there to pick up the slack. My breath came in short, painful gasps. I was reading about myself like I was a stranger. A failure. A burden. Vanessa, thanks everyone. Honestly, it's been challenging stepping up, but someone has to. Charlotte tries, but she just doesn't have the instinct for this work. I'm just glad I could salvage the Riverside deal before it fell apart. Salvage. She'd written salvage, like I'd been drowning it instead of building it from nothing. Mom, Vanessa's been such a blessing. We're so lucky to have her taking charge. I dropped the phone like it was burning. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. Charlotte? Marcus's voice was thick with sleep. What's wrong? I couldn't speak. Couldn't form words. He picked up my phone, read the messages, and I watched his expression harden into something dangerous. This is insane, he said. These people are insane. They're my family. They're liars. He was scrolling now, reading more. Jesus Christ. They're rewriting history. You told me about Riverside, you did everything. The analysis, the negotiations, all of it. Doesn't matter. My voice sounded hollow. Vanessa's the favorite. She always has been. It matters, he said fiercely. Charlotte, look at me. It matters. But I couldn't look at him. I was remembering every oversight, every dismissal, every time I'd been erased from my own family's narrative. The birthday parties where Vanessa's accomplishments were celebrated and mine were footnotes. The Christmas cards where she was featured prominently and I was cropped out. The college graduation where my parents had left early because Vanessa had a tennis match. I'd spent my whole life trying to be good enough. Smart enough. Useful enough. And it had never mattered because I wasn't her. I need to sleep, I whispered. Charlotte, please. I just need to sleep. He held me while I cried. Silent, shaking sobs that felt like they'd been trapped inside me for decades. He didn't tell me it would be okay. He didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He just held me, solid and real, while everything else dissolved. The next morning, I woke up to 70 more messages. The story had spread. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were weighing in, offering their opinions on my inadequacy. Someone had screenshot Vanessa's post and shared it to Facebook. The comments there were worse, strangers judging me based on a carefully curated image. I called in sick to work. I couldn't face the office, couldn't face the people who would have seen Vanessa's post, who would look at me with pity or contempt. Marcus made coffee. Strong and black, the way I needed it. We should talk, he said. About what? About what happens next. Nothing happens next. This is how it is. He set down his mug. No. This is abuse, Charlotte. Financial control, emotional manipulation, public humiliation, this is textbook abuse. They're not abusing me. They're just what? Just erasing you? Just taking credit for your work? Just letting your entire extended family trash you in a group chat? His voice was rising, anger bleeding through. How is that not abuse? I didn't have an answer. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. Here it was, the secret he'd been carrying. The thing that made him flinch when his phone rang, that put shadows in his eyes. Okay, I said quietly. He paced to the window, back to me, to the window again. My name isn't Marcus Chin. I mean, it is, but it's Marcus Chin Bradford. The name hit me like cold water. Bradford. As in Bradford Industries. As in the Bradford family that owned half the commercial real estate in the Northeast. As in wealth that made my family look middle class. I don't understand. My grandfather built Bradford Industries, he said, words coming faster now. When he died, he left it to my father, who left it to me. I'm the CEO. Have been for 3 years. I stared at him. At this man in worn jeans and a faded t-shirt. This man who'd shown up to construction sites and talked about drywall and electrical wiring. This man who'd let my family treat him like he was beneath them. You're a CEO. Yes. A billionaire. Technically. And you didn't tell me. He moved closer, hands reaching for mine. I couldn't. Charlotte, you have to understand, when I met you, I was so tired of being Marcus Bradford. Tired of people wanting me for my money, my name, my connections. You didn't know who I was. You just saw me. And God, that was like oxygen. You lied to me. I omitted. And I know that's not much better, but I was going to tell you. I swear I was. I was just waiting for the right moment, and then tonight happened, and I saw how they treated you, and I realized, he stopped, jaw working. I realized that you'd lived your whole life being valued for what you could provide to your family. And I couldn't stand the thought of you thinking that's why I was with you. For your connections or your family's business. I pulled my hands away. So you let them humiliate you? Let them think you were, what? Not good enough for me? I don't care what they think. His voice was steel. I only care what you think. I wanted to be angry. Part of me was angry at the deception, at the complexity of it. But a larger part understood. Because hadn't I been hiding too? Hiding my pain, my resentment, my desperate desire to escape. We'd both been wearing masks, trying to find something real in a world built on appearances. Why are you telling me now? I asked. Because I can help you, he said. Because I have resources, lawyers, investigators, accountants. Because if your family is doing this to you, they're probably doing other things. Financial things. Legal things. And I can help you find out. I don't want revenge. This isn't revenge. This is truth. Don't you deserve to know the truth? I thought about the Riverside deal. About 6 months of my life. About the party I wasn't invited to, celebrating work I'd done. About the group chat and the Instagram post and the years of being erased. Yes, I whispered. I deserve the truth. Marcus made calls. That afternoon, 3 people arrived at my apartment, a lawyer named Rebecca Santos, an accountant named David Park, and a private investigator named Helen Yu. They sat at my kitchen table with tablets and laptops and asked me questions. What projects had I worked on? What access did I have to company files? Had I noticed any irregularities? Any unusual transactions? I answered everything. Slowly at first, then faster as memories surfaced. The project in Boston where my projections had been ignored, then later attributed to Vanessa. The client meeting I'd prepared for, only to be told at the last minute that Vanessa would be attending instead. The bonus I'd been promised, then quietly absorbed into company expenses. Rebecca took notes with quick, efficient strokes. This is good. This gives us places to start looking. Looking for what? I asked. Fraud, most likely, David said, scrolling through something on his tablet. Your family's firm is privately held, which means less oversight. If they've been systematically taking credit for your work, there's a good chance they've been financially benefiting from it in ways that aren't entirely legal. My father wouldn't, your father, Helen interrupted gently, has a history of aggressive business practices. I've already pulled some public records. There are complaints. Settlements. NDAs. Your family is very good at making problems disappear. I felt sick. I don't want to destroy them. We're not destroying anyone, Rebecca said. We're finding out what's actually happening. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. They left with promises to be in touch. Marcus and I sat in the sudden silence, afternoon light slanting through the windows. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I don't know what I am." He pulled me close, and I let myself sink into him. This man who'd pretended to be someone else because he wanted to be loved for who he was, not what he had. I understood that. God, I understood that so completely. "We'll figure this out," he said. "Together." Together, I echoed, and felt something inside me start to harden. Not into bitterness. Into resolve. The investigation took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Rebecca and David and Helen pulling documents, interviewing former employees, tracing transactions. 2 weeks of me going into the office every day, smiling at Vanessa, nodding at my father, pretending everything was normal while my world shifted beneath my feet. Marcus was there every night. Making dinner. Listening. Holding me when the panic attacks hit, because they did hit, hard and sudden, leaving me gasping on the bathroom floor. He never pushed. Never demanded. Just stayed. Then Rebecca called. "We need to meet. All of us." They spread documents across Marcus's dining room table, because we'd moved the operation there, to the penthouse apartment I hadn't known he owned until a week ago. Financial records. Emails. Depositions from former employees. "Your family has been systematically stealing from you," Rebecca said without preamble. "Not just credit. Actual money. Bonuses you earned that were redirected. Commissions from deals you closed. There's a paper trail, and it's damning." David pushed a spreadsheet toward me. "By my calculations, they've diverted approximately $740,000 over the past 4 years. The number hit me like a physical blow. $750,000. Money I'd earned. Money that should have been mine. "There's more," Helen said. "The Riverside acquisition? The one they're celebrating? It's built on your analysis, yes, but they also used your personal contacts, people you cultivated, without compensation or credit. In the business world, that's not just unethical. In some cases, it's legally actionable." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means you have options," Rebecca said. "We can file suit for the stolen compensation. We can file a complaint with the state licensing board about business practices. We can go to the SEC about some of the more creative accounting we've found. Or," she paused. "Or we can present this to your family privately and negotiate a settlement." "What would you get out of a settlement?" I asked. "Your money back. An acknowledgement of your contributions. Potentially a stake in the company that actually reflects your value. And most importantly, freedom." Freedom. The word hung in the air like a promise. "They'll fight," I said. "They'll lose," Rebecca replied. "The evidence is ironclad. But they'll definitely make it ugly first." I thought about my mother's disappointed face. My father's cold dismissal. Vanessa's triumphant smile. The family group chat. The party I wasn't invited to. "Set up a meeting," I said. "I want to talk to them." We scheduled it for the following Friday. Neutral ground, a conference room at Rebecca's law firm. My father arrived first, looking irritated. My mother came next, confused. Vanessa was last, scrolling through her phone, not even bothering to hide her boredom. "What's this about, Charlotte?" my father asked. "I have a conference call in an hour." This is about money, I said, and my voice was steady. Calm. I'd practiced this moment in mirrors, with Marcus, with Rebecca. Specifically, money you've stolen from me. Vanessa laughed. Stolen? God, Charlotte, don't be dramatic. David slid the first document across the table. This is a detailed accounting of bonuses and commissions earned by Charlotte over the past 4 years, compared with what she actually received. My father picked it up, scanned it, set it down. These are internal company decisions. How we allocate compensation is our business. Actually, it's illegal, Rebecca said. Especially when the person earning the compensation is being systematically defrauded. We have emails, financial records, and testimony from former employees. We have enough evidence to file both civil and criminal complaints. The room went very quiet. My mother's hand fluttered to her throat. Charlotte, darling, surely we can discuss this privately. This is family business. No, I said. This is my business. My work. My money. And you've been taking it for years. Vanessa's face had gone pale. This is insane. Daddy, tell her this is insane. But my father was reading the documents now, really reading them, and I watched the calculations happen behind his eyes. The risk assessment. The cost-benefit analysis. What do you want? He asked finally. I want the $740,000 you've taken from me. I want my name on every project I've worked on. I want an equal stake in the company, not the token percentage you've given me. And I want an apology. Absolutely not, Vanessa said. You can't just, I can, I interrupted. And I will. Rebecca has the paperwork ready. We can file it today. It'll be public record. Your business practices will be investigated. The SEC will get involved. Your reputation will be destroyed. My mother was crying now, delicate tears that didn't smudge her makeup. How could you do this to us? We're your family. Something inside me cracked open. Not breaking. Opening. Like a flower toward sun. You're the ones who did this, I said. You erased me. You took credit for my work. You excluded me from celebrating my own success. You let our entire family trash me in a group chat. You treated me like I was worthless. So don't talk to me about family. My father stood up. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I'm correcting one. The negotiation took hours. Back and forth, threats and counters, my father trying to intimidate and Rebecca shutting him down with legal precedent. In the end, they agreed to most of it, the money, the stake in the company, public acknowledgement of my contributions. The only thing I didn't get was the apology. Some things, I realized, they'd never be capable of giving. We left the law firm as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of fire. Marcus's hand was warm in mine. How do you feel? He asked. Like I can breathe, I said. For the first time in my life, I can actually breathe. The Riverside celebration happened 2 weeks later. I didn't attend. Instead, Marcus and I had dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind of place where the owner knew everyone's names and the wine came in carafes. We talked about the future, real future, not the one my family had planned for me. I was leaving the firm. Starting my own consulting business, using the money I'd fought for as seed capital. Marcus was backing me, not financially but emotionally, helping me build something that was entirely mine. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. The party was a success. You should have been here. I stared at it for a long moment. All my life, I'd wanted that validation. That inclusion. The sense that I belonged in my own family. I deleted the message. Everything okay? Marcus asked. Everything's perfect, I said, and meant it. The sun set over the Brooklyn Bridge, light bleeding across the water. Marcus reached across the table, took my hand, and smiled, the kind of smile that held promises and futures and the simple, radical act of being seen. I smiled back. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the invisible daughter. I wasn't the erased, excluded, dismissed one. I was just Charlotte. Whole. Free. Mine. And that, I realized, was worth more than any party.